Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast is at the Combine in Indianapolis as he joins us for another edition of Football at 4. Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni talking today. We'll get Adam's cliff notes on what he heard, plus some thoughts on the Combine. He'll be back on Friday with a lot of notes on the Combine. But what year at the Combine is this for you, Adam Caplan?
Oh, Mike, good to talk to you. I believe this is 24th. Yeah, now they didn't have a Combine, I think, in 21. But I've been to every one that they had since 2002. And it's funny, I was talking to some old-time reporters that I've gotten to know, Matt Mayoko, covers the Niners and others, about it. Like, when I came here, Mike, the access was incredible. Maybe there would be 75 people from the media standpoint. Well, Mike, there are actually, and this is interesting, it's becoming a bigger deal here than almost the Super Bowl. So there were 60 tables taken for the media in terms of podcasters and a lot of team websites and radio stations. So it's become a bigger deal for the media than it was clearly when I first started covering the league and when I first came here in 2002. And by the way, it used to be held at not at Lucas Oil Stadium to start. It was at the RCA Dome, which is connected to the convention center.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say it's more people covering it, but has it lost its impact some with some of the players? We see quarterbacks don't really want to throw, and some of the higher profile guys, you can still find guys that utilize this to move their stock up, but these top guys seemingly are saying, no thanks, I'll wait till my pro day.
Yeah, like Shedeur Sanders, who will be a first-round quarterback. Don't know where he'll go yet. It's too early, but this has been going on for years. A lot of quarterbacks don't throw here. It just depends on what the agent thinks and does the player agree to it. But this is actually part of our show that dropped on Monday on all platforms that Jeff Mosher and I discussed this. We talked about the value of the Combine. That was actually the subject of that show, about what teams get out of it, don't get out of it, why it's important, but not to overrate for what it is. It's a very small part of the evaluation profile, really. The number one criteria for evaluating a player is about 75% game tape and then everything else.
Adam, yeah, you do everything. You get this, the weigh-ins, the speed, the medicals, all that stuff. That kind of starts everything up. Yes. And the medicals are really big for some of these guys.
The
and
biggest
the speed,
one.
The biggest one. But the speed thing, I mean, this is where some of these guys get enamored by, oh, my God, he was a 4.3. That moves you up.
You know, Mike, that was the story that I told about. Chad Jackson, the receiver from from University of Florida, who the Patriots drafted a number of years ago, and this is definitely at the other place at the RCA Dome when they would have it there before it got torn down, and he ran a ridiculous 40. I mean, it was not expected. He didn't have a great career at University of Florida. What happened is the Patriots will tell you, as I remember talking to someone from the Patriots years after, where they completely overvalued the time. As you said, the tape tells you everything you need to know about how competitive the football player is, how talented he is. And then all of a sudden, because he runs his 40 time way better than you expected, it doesn't change what kind of football player is. And you can't do that. You got to be careful. And I also mentioned when I was at the Senior Bowl many years ago, you might remember Matt Jones, the former Arkansas quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
Went to the Senior Bowl as a receiver. Now, I'll admit, I was blown away. No one could live over the 3 days of practice at the Senior Bowl. It didn't matter who was covering him. He ran right by everyone. And we were all blown away. We're like, wow, this kid, who most people thought would be, because they knew he was an athlete, a third or fourth round pick. Well, the Jaguars obviously made a mistake. They overdrafted him in the first round. Now, Matt Jones, unfortunately, had significant off-the-field problems. But you could see the speed, but you can't move him up 3 rounds just because the guy ran fast. You got to be careful about that.
Yeah, well, you know what's interesting? You're out there, so you probably hear some buzz and stuff about some of these things. But you got a guy as high profile as Shedeur Sanders, who obviously has a Hall of Fame father. Know, is he getting a lot of the buzz? Because he seems like a very polarizing draft prospect.
Here's the deal: Cam Ward is clearly a better prospect. It's as I was joking with a friend of mine, it's like going from dial-up internet to high speed. It's not that Shedeur is not a good quarterback. He is. He'll go in the first round. But Cam Ward, the tape is significantly better than Shedeur Sanders. That's the bottom line. So, in my mock draft that I did, the audio-video mock draft, I'll give you a hint. I put Shedeur in the first 10 picks. Why? And I forget which general manager said this today on the platform here at the Combine. if you don't have, it was Adam Peters, I think, the GM of the Commandos.
Yep.
He said, when you don't have one, you're looking for one, and you never want to be in that spot. And the Commanders are not in it anymore. They don't need it. They've got their guy. But it's a terrible feeling. When the bottom dropped out for the Eagles on the Carson Wentz situation, they didn't know Jalen Hurts was going to be the franchise quarterback. He was drafted to be Wentz's backup. That's the truth. They didn't know that. But thankfully, for the Eagles' sake, that Hurts worked out after the Wentz stuff didn't. But how many teams? We'd have to go through. We don't have time to go through this. How many teams went through their quarterback situation where they failed on the first guy, although it started out great, and then the backup turned out to be the franchise quarterback? Like, how does that happen? It doesn't happen.
That's a great question. I don't know.
I have no idea. I can't say a situation like that.
Yeah, I mean, we've had situations where the starter got old and moved on, like Brett Favre moved on and Rodgers took over, but not where the starter flamed out and then got traded to make way for the backup. I mean, even, Rodgers left and Love took over. Now he hasn't won the Super Bowl, but yeah, that's a good point by you. Adam Caplan's at the Combine. At the Combine today, Sirianni and Roseman. Let's start a little bit with Sirianni. He said that they had an extensive interview process before they promoted Kevin Patullo. Do we have any idea of any? Because we didn't hear any other names, so it was just basically he got promoted. We didn't hear that they interviewed anybody.
Mike, it's so funny because, well, they did. They had to interview 2 minority candidates, but I forget what show I did, and someone said, "Hey, so who else do you think they're going to interview?" I said to the host of the show, because he knew that we put out a while back, probably it was before the playoffs started, there was going to be Patullo most likely. That would be the replacement if Kellen Moore became a head coach, and he did with the Saints. And I said to the guy, I got to be honest with you, I have no idea who the other names are. We're not going to make them up. Josh McCown, we know there was a guy who they liked, who, by the way, Kevin O'Connell spoke very highly of today with their quarterbacks coach. But and Nick talked about it. So, I was 5 feet from him when he said it. And he made it pretty clear continuity had a lot to do with it. No question. He did confirm that we knew already Parks Frazier will be their pass game coordinator. He didn't want to really talk about it because they haven't announced anything yet. The reason is, Mike, he didn't say it, but I'll say it for him. They have to hire a quarterbacks coach and an assistant O-line coach. And the Eagles historically, Mike, they won't announce their coaching staff unless it's full, with rare exception. They just don't like to do it. And by the way, sometimes if a guy's in sign a contract, he could back out, which has happened to some teams over the years. You got to be careful, but we're so late in the game. It's not like there should be guys leaving for other jobs. So, but the big part I do want to mention before we move on, because I know you want to talk about what Howie Roseman talked about and some other stuff if we have time here. But the tush-push thing, man, is fascinating because I know other teams. I haven't talked to you about this. I just happened to run into some guys last night when I got here. It just became – because it got out about – we know now it's the Packers are one of the teams. And Mark Murphy, their president, went on record. Their GM today, Brian Gutekunst, went on record. And Sirianni was defending it today, man. I could see it in his eyes, man. He was – because, Nick tries to play stuff close to the vest. He was not doing that today. He came out firing today. He was not happy about the criticism.
Yeah, I did hear a little bit of his presser today. I mean, he went on about how much they practice and the intricacies of what goes into that play. And he gave a passionate plea as to why they do it well and other teams, maybe don't, but how much time they put into that play. But, Adam, I mean, listening all day, national talk, everyone is talking about this tush-push and whether it should stay or go.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't see it. I saw the clip of it. I guess the Insider Show on NFL Network, they were talking about it.
Oh, it's been everywhere. I mean, all day today, every national show is debating whether or not – it is everywhere, yes.
That's awesome. I know it's a slope where – although free agency starts in less than 2 weeks, it starts in 2 weeks from yesterday. That's how crazy. March 10th is when all the big deals will go off the board. So it's coming right up here, Mike. But this is a big deal. And by the way, I'll be at the owners' meetings in March, Mike. I'm sure I'll do your Tuesday show that week before I fly back on Wednesday, and that'll be brought up. I got wind of this, and I'll just put a little. This is not news, but something that I'm told that's going to happen is the competition committee and the special teams coaches will be talking about not only how well the revised kickoff rule was, but where the not only how well it did, but what will happen if the ball goes in the end zone. It's going to be at the 35, 30-yard line. I could tell you that's going to be. There's a realistic chance that if there's a touchback, that the yardage where the ball is placed is going to change. Talking to multiple special teams coaches last night. Believe it or not, I usually don't talk to them, but they're staying near my hotel, and I saw them on the street, and then a couple guys stopped me, and we were just talking, and that came up. Because I asked them, I said, "What did you think of the new kickoff since I'm here?" And one guy said, "Hey, just so you know, I think a touchback's real chance they start at 35." I'm like, all right, that's interesting. I'll mention it somewhere.
Well, the whole point, Adam, wasn't it to try to be like strategic, and then it was almost like team said, "You want the ball at the 30? Who cares? Take it."
Right, and I know Mike Tomlin. By the way, I'll give you another nugget. Mike Tomlin, who's a part of the competition committee, obviously the Steelers head coach. Apparently, he's been very vocal on some stuff. So we'll see what happens. But the competition committee is phenomenal. They do a great job, and we were able to talk to some of those guys. This year, by the way, it's going to be in West Palm at the Breakers. For those of you who like this stuff, that'll be the big thing before the draft is the competition committee and Mike and what rules get changed or not changed. You know, the Eagles, usually every year, they're pretty vocal behind the scenes on certain things.
All right, Adam Caplan's with us here. Howie Roseman did speak as well. Now, I want to get he declined to answer about Myles Garrett. However, and you have said before, well, the Browns don't want to trade Garrett. As Andrew Berry said today, I can't envision a team without him. Although Jeremy Fowler said if they do have to trade him, that Roseman would do whatever it takes to make sure the Commandos do not get him, that he would put together a package that the Browns would not be able to say no to. He also said, forget Garrett, okay? Yeah. Let's say you say, Mike, Garrett is not getting traded. Get it out of your mind. Fine. The one thing I thought Fowler said that was interesting
I'm not saying that. I was at the – just so you know, I know Andrew a little casually, but I'm just going to tell you, his language today was very strong, but this is in my – we're going to talk about this on Inside the Birds tomorrow, Mike. He never said they're not trading him.
He never said he didn't trade him. And the thing that Fowler said that I thought was interesting about, forget Garrett, he said that they want to be very aggressive, the most aggressive team in the trade market this offseason. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Who, Cleveland?
Philadelphia.
I didn't hear it. In what context? Is he saying Howie said that, or that's what he'd heard? I didn't listen to it.
Yeah, well, let me see if I can pull it up for you real quick here, and we can try to listen to it at the same time. So basically he said, what I'm hearing is they want to be the most aggressive, if not the most aggressive team in free agency. All right, here, I will play this for you, Adam. Here, let's play this now. This is Jeremy Fowler this morning on Get Up.
Why I should be thinking about Myles Garrett on the Eagles.
So way early, I'm connecting some dots here, admittedly. But this is a conversation that some people in the league have had, that the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the most aggressive, if not the most aggressive teams on the trade market, will be looking for a pass rusher. Josh Sweat, the Super Bowl likely or close MVP, could be out. The expectation is that he will sign elsewhere. So they're going to have a need there. Myles Garrett, they would not want to see him go to the Washington Commanders, for example. If that was to gain traction, Howie Roseman would likely step in, try to make a deal that is too hard for the Cleveland Browns to refuse. Keep it in mind here, the Browns are a hard no. They're still telling teams they have no interest in trading Myles Garrett. If he were to become available, several teams will be in that. Maybe the Eagles will be one.
All right, so there you go. There's the context.
Yeah, just so you know, and I know Jeremy, we used to work together. This is not a question of anything he said, but just understand something. It won't take the Washington Commanders to draw Howie Roseman's interest in Myles Garrett. If Myles Garrett is available, first of all, Andrew Berry and Howie are very close. Okay, Howie's been a mentor to Andrew. I could give you some background on this. I know a lot about this. So, if Myles Garrett became available, if Howie's not first in line, he's literally calling him 50 times. Howie, when he wants something, because I've talked to other GMs, is relentless.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, he doesn't need the Commanders to up it. That won't matter. It just adds a little fuel to the fire. But Jeremy's right. Josh Sweat, there's a real feeling he won't be back. It's not that the Eagles don't want him back. And we're going to get into this closer to free agency, but I'll give you a nugget here. Mike, the thing that the Eagles are dealing with, which is a struggle for them, and obviously it would be a real struggle if they added Myles Garrett, because Howie talked about that today. He didn't talk about Garrett. But when you make I'm looking at what Howie said in my notes here, when you make major acquisitions, it impacts other areas of cash and cap. You can't. It's just, for instance, if the Eagles, let's leave Garrett to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they re-sign Milton Williams which is going to take, as we told our Patreon people 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, 21 to 22 million a year. Could get higher depending on how many teams are in it, how much leverage he has. He also changed agents last year. You're going to have to every single NFL team, all 32 of them, look at 3-year increments. That's how they build their cash and cap budgets. So Nolan Smith, if he has another good year, I know he's coming off of the tricep surgery, but if he has another good year, that deal could average 27 to 30 million. Okay, then you look at Jalen Carter. It starts at 30 million a season. That's where the tackle market is going for the top guys. That's where that could go. So, Mike, you're talking about $110 million to 4 players per on an average per season for 4 players. It's really hard to pull off. That's why Josh Sweat, I'm just bringing that up. That's why there's a realistic chance he leaves. It's just not that the Eagles don't want him back. They want Zach Bond back. They'd love to have Milton Williams back, but over a 3-year period, you cannot pay everybody. I know that there's just so you understand, I know they've signed a lot of guys offensively, but it's really hard to pull it off at every position.
Absolutely. And, somebody had texted in earlier and wondered if you trade for Garrett, how does that affect the cap situation? Because he has this year and another year on his deal. So he signed through 2026 at a pretty big number. So those are things that, listen.
That'll get redone, Mike. Just so you know, it's getting redone. If he gets traded, trust me, that he is getting that deal. He wants a new deal, and they've I know the Browns will do what they have to make sure he's happy. It's interesting. More and more Barry spoke, the more strong he was about keeping Garrett. But I know my friend Rick Spillman, my old friend Rick, would say, we have no intention in trading said player. It was Adrian Peterson, by the way. And he's talking about I just thought that all Barry had to do was say, we're not trading the player. That's it. It's done. When you say that, Mike, we're not talking about it anymore. You could shut it down. Yeah. You could shut other teams down. So I just thought it was interesting that he chose not to say that.
Roseman also said, we have a lot of guys in the prime of their careers, long-term contracts, 26, 27, 28-year-old. We got to make sure we keep this window as long as possible. And that's why I find it interesting, do you take that shot and say, look, our best players are all in those mid to late 20s. Let's go get, I liken it to, I said, Adam, at the beginning of the show, the Dodgers won a World Series. Then they went out and got the best pitcher they could get. They added Blake Snell. They got the Japanese pitcher, and they said, let's just keep adding more to try to get 2. Is Roseman looking at, I got this window of young players. Let's add to it and get another one.
Well, yeah. See, here's the part of it. The Eagles are picking currently at 32nd in the first round. That's not a great. It's a great place to be because you won the Super Bowl. You're not getting the type A player. So what would they, again, we'll talk more about this as we get closer to March 10th, but if you really look at it, what would they be trading for? Potentially a starting corner if they want to keep Cooper DeJean as their dynamic nickel player, which he does. He plays multiple nickel roles, but he's a nickel player. What else would they be doing? They would need edge rushers. They would be right in the market for an edge rusher. There's no question about it, making a trade. It's hard to get them. But the other thing is, and this is, I think I know I've told you this before I get out of here. The Raiders told me several times in 2018 they weren't trading Khalil Mack. And then John Gruden got nervous because he thought he was wrong. Mack never said he wasn't going to show up before the season started. But he got cold feet and he traded him. And he also thought he traded Khalil Mack to a team that had no chance of the playoffs. Well, guess what? The Bears shocked the world with Mitch Trubisky, and they made the playoffs, so those picks were not as valuable as they thought they would be.
Well, Adam, enjoy the rest of this week down there, and of course you'll have some nuggets on Friday's show as well from the Combine as the Eagles, the draft process. You mentioned 32. This is a spot they have traded out of before. They got Nolan Smith way down in the 30 spot. So, there's areas, defensive tackle you can get at that spot in the draft. Edge rushers, good draft for that as well. I'm sure we'll talk more about that as the draft process goes on. But you just said it. March 10th is the start of free agency. We'll be all over that here on Football at 4. Thank you, Adam Caplan.
Thank you.